Hello and welcome to Paris Image Online and today's panel, Convergence with Ubisoft and Fortiche Studio, brought to you by the CNC. Today we're going to hear two presentations from Déborah Papiernik, Senior Vice President of New Business and Strategic Alliance at Ubisoft, and from Hervé Dupont, Head of Production at Fortiche Studio. Both of these presentations center around the idea of convergence. What do we mean by convergence? Well, I think we're focusing on interactions between different games, films, and series creators and seeing how they're dealing with IP that originates from different media. I think that we'll see through these two presentations and the conversation that will follow that when translating existing IP from one medium to another, the term adaptation kind of feels out of date. And hopefully that we're through our talks and through your presentations, we'll get a better understanding of what we really mean by convergence. To start with, we're going to talk to Déborah Papiernik, who has been with the French video game developer and publisher Ubisoft for 25 years. But before we go any further, could you introduce Ubisoft to the viewers?
Sure. Ubisoft is a French company, and we're a leading developer and publisher of video games worldwide. Our mission is to enrich players' life through memorable gaming experiences. And our portfolio is very vast. We have many different IPs from Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, Watch Dogs, the Tom Clancy, Rainbow Six, Ghost Recon, The Division, but also games like Just Dance or The Rabbids.
And so your title is Senior Vice President of New Business and Strategic Alliance, and I think that that kind of gives away the game that you explore new businesses and new places to bring Ubisoft content and to bring people into the Ubisoft orbit. And that includes live events, live entertainment, and location-based VR, which is something that we're going to be talking about today. So without further ado, what can you tell us about your new project for in partnership with the upcoming film from Jean-Jacques Hano, Notre Dame on Fire?
Well, on April 15, 2019, Notre Dame was almost destroyed in a devastating fire. And people around the world started sharing memories of Notre Dame. They started sharing videos, photos, and the gamers among them started sharing video footage from the game Assassin's Creed Unity. This game was released by Ubisoft in 2014, so that was 5 years before the fire, and it featured a beautiful reconstitution of Notre Dame. And at Ubisoft, of course, we felt very concerned by the fire. First, because we're a French company, but also because of our specific attachment to the cathedral through our game Assassin's Creed Unity. So we gave money for the reconstruction. We also made the game available for free for gamers to download and play at home. But I wanted to go one step further and to make this beautiful 3D model of Notre Dame available to a larger public, to go beyond the traditional gamers. So I asked my team to pull out the 3D model from the game, the 3D model of Notre Dame, and to create a virtual reality experience. And just a few months after the fire, we had this beautiful 4-minute experience where you can actually walk in Notre Dame and explore the cathedral from 10 different points of view, including some points of view that were inaccessible when Notre Dame was open to the public. We were very privileged to be able to show this experience to the people who are working on the reconstruction of Notre Dame, on the restoration of Notre Dame. And from the stonemason to the stained glass window makers, from the architect to the Archbishop of Paris, everybody tried the experience and they all loved the emotion. The experience is available for free. If you have a VR headset, you can download it and play it at home. And for those who don't have a VR headset, you can see it at the archaeological crypt of Notre Dame, just in front of Notre Dame, on the square below Notre Dame. Now, last year, Jean-Jacques Hano and Ubisoft started considering working together on the around the film project Notre Dame in Fire. We could have developed a traditional game for PC and console for people to play at home, but instead we decided to go for an immersive, collaborative experience in location-based, so out-of-home entertainment. So we're developing a virtual reality escape game. It's a 1-hour escape game that puts you in the shoes of the firefighters, and with your teammates, you're going to have to find and open the chest that holds the relics of Notre Dame, and you're going to have to fight the epic battle against the flame before it's too late. So you're reproducing what happens in reality, where time was of the essence, the same way in an escape game, time is of the essence. Jean-Jacques Hano is an amazing storyteller, and we were very lucky because he took the time to tell us everything he knew about the fire, and he also shared the scenario of the movie with my team. We went to see the set of the movie in Saint-Denis, north of Paris, to see all the reproduction of Notre Dame that he was doing on the set. And my team was also invited to several sequences, filming sequences for the movie, to get a feel of the movie and to be able to exchange with the professionals working on the movie. The idea of this VR game, virtual reality game, is to make you feel how the tension of the fight against the fire, to have you feel the heroism of the firefighter who fought this terrible battle. And as terrible as it may sound, it must have been at the same time frightening and astonishingly beautiful to see fire falling from the top of Notre Dame. We invited several firefighters to test the game in development at Ubisoft, so that they give us information and they help us make it right in terms of attitude, language, and event. We really want to be as close as possible to the reality of the fight against the fire. Ubisoft already has 3 escape games based on our IPs, on our brands, on Assassin's Creed in Greece, Egypt, and on Prince of Persia, that are distributed by a network and operated by a network of 600 partners worldwide in Asia, in the US, in South America, in Europe, and in Australia. And we're looking forward to more places to open and welcome the Notre Dame experience that is going to be suitable both for gamers and non-gamers, for adults and for children. This experience is going to be very complementary to the film. In this experience, you're not a spectator, you're going to be an actor of the fight against Notre Dame. Thank you.
Thank you. So many questions. First of all, what you're talking about before, Ubisoft had already had an existing relationship with Notre Dame, obviously, from the Assassin's Creed game and then on to the experience that you designed. So when it came time to continue developing Notre Dame as a place and as a subject for experiences and games, why did you find it interesting and valuable to partner with a film as well, a film that was sort of outside of the purview?
Because we had this beautiful 3D model, but it's important to tell a story. And we were very lucky because instead of having to go places and find information, we could have gone directly to the firefighters and they could tell us part of the story, and someone else could tell us another part of the story. And the person who opened the safe could have told us the story. But Jean-Jacques Hano had all the information about everything. And so it was so much easier to have just one person telling us the whole story, especially when it's such a good storyteller.
Absolutely. And the idea of storytelling is really interesting, especially when the the escape game, puts people into the place of firefighters. How are they going to experience... how will they go through the experience in a way that is going to parallel the film, or is it slightly different from the film itself?
The experience is going to be different from the film, obviously. It's going to be shorter, and you're going to spend time solving puzzles. So you're not watching other people solving the puzzles. You have to do it yourself. So it's going to take time. And also you have to find your way in the cathedral. It's in flame. And you have maybe you want to go one way and it doesn't work. You have to go back and try another way. And then your teammates are going to have to help you climb because there's something you have to do up there. And so it's only really inspired by the movie and by the reality. So as close as possible, but just parts of it.
I mean, and it does in a way feel like, not that you're serving two masters, but you have to appeal to the historical verisimilitude, but also to recreate maybe the emotions and the experience of watching the film. And I wonder how that affected your storytelling.
Well, actually, when we do games, we always work with historians, and like all kinds of experts for weapons, experts for everything, to be as close as possible to reality. But then we need to preserve the interest of the gamer. The gamer has to find it interesting. For example, if we do a map, the map of Paris, in the case of Assassin's Creed Unity, we had like 50 different monuments that were rather accurate, but we made the map much smaller than the actual map of Paris, because people don't want to spend hours going from one place to the other, and there's no metro that they can take to go from one place to the other. So it's inspired by reality. But when I was talking about this with Jean-Jacques Hano, he told me we're taking the licence poétique in French. It's like, okay, there is the history, there's the reality, but then when you want to tell the story, you can allow yourself to go different ways, because what's important is that people buy your story, that you involve them in the storytelling. And by the way, if you follow what I said at the beginning, our game is a game based on the French Revolution. Okay? The spire of Notre Dame was only built 70 years later, but we decided to feature the Notre Dame from the 19th century in an 18th century game. And it's fine, because we're not scientists. We're entertainers, okay? And we needed Notre Dame to be recognizable. Without its spire, Notre Dame is not recognizable.
Now, the film has its own release calendar. Of course, location-based virtual reality follows a very different distribution and exhibition pattern than traditional 2D cinema does, or even 3D cinema does. And how are you going to thread that needle? Are you trying to follow the film on its own calendar, or do something completely separate?
We're going to be in the same window of release. In some countries, it's going to be at the same time. In some countries, it's going to be just a bit before, a bit later, but it's around the same window. And Notre Dame is here to stay. It's an eternal story. So it's okay if in some countries we release after the movie, for example. It doesn't really matter, because the topic is eternal.
Just the last question before we move on. How do you intend to use some of the cross-promotional opportunities that the film's release is going to offer you?
Excuse me? Can
the cross-promotional opportunities.
Yes, we're very close to Pathé, who's working on the film, and we're going to work together on cross-promotion.
Do you have any specific plans or projects so you can...
I would love cinemas to be able to provide the experience, but for that they would have to have the operations, meaning they would have to have virtual reality headsets and PCs and people who can operate the escape game. And it's a different ticketing system as well. So it would make complete sense to have that. I don't know if it's possible, but hopefully maybe in some places.
And just a last thing to make clear for everybody watching, there's a significant distribution pattern already set up. I mean, how many locations do you have worldwide already?
Already 600.
Wow. Okay. Well, chances are everyone will be able to see it at one point or another. Thank you so much. And now we're going to move to Hervé Dupont. You're the head of production at Fortiche Studios. And actually, before we talk a little bit about Fortiche's most recent success, could you introduce the company in general terms?
Yes, of course. Hi. So Fortiche is an animation studio, and it has been founded in 2009 by Pascal Charus, Jérôme Combe, and Arnaud Delors. And this is really important because they are the art of Fortiche, and they are filmmakers, directors, art directors. So that's really the essence of Fortiche. We are a filmmakers company, I would say, more than a traditional animation studio. And so they started like a lot of small companies by doing advertising, commercials, or music videos, and also cinematics, including some for Ubisoft at the time. And but I would say that the story behind Arcane is more related to...
Well, we should say that Arcane is Fortiche's I mean, without being precious about it, biggest success to date.
Of course.
It's an animated series, we should say, that was released onto Netflix, almost worldwide, not in China, but in November of 2021, so not that long ago, and has become just a massive critical success, public success, and was recently nominated for 9 Annie Awards. So congratulations on that.
Thank you, thank you.
So what can you tell us about Arcane and your collaboration with Riot Games, the video game studio behind League of Legends, of which Arcane is basically very liberally inspired?
Yeah, it's really interesting because Arcane could not have happened without the partnership between Fortiche and Riot, and more specifically between Pascal, Jérôme, and Arnaud, and Christian Linke, who is the showrunner of Arcane. They came to us after seeing in 2012, we did 2 videos. One is Gorillaz, who just put a name on Fortiche because it has a massive audience. And the other video we produced that year was La Gaviota, which is a music video where you can already see the Fortiche style as it is today, meaning visually it's a mix of 2D and 3D and CG. And the staging is really related and inspired by live action directors. And La Gaviota, for instance, is inspired by Brian De Palma kind of staging. And Riot did spot La Gaviota, and they were looking for something new and fresh for their videos. So,
and just who is Riot, for those who aren't aware?
Oh, Riot is the editor of League of Legends online video game, which is, I think, the biggest video game online. And they are, for a decade, they were Riot Games with an S, but with only one game. And since 2 years, they've been releasing plenty of games like Valorant and other games on app.
And so they came to Fortiche in 2013 around?
Yeah, exactly. They were looking for a new style for their videos, and they spotted La Gaviota. And so they went to us, and specifically Christian Linke, who was already working at Riot then, and they wanted to launch a new character, a new champion for the game, which was Jinx at the time. And Christian didn't want like a traditional cinematics of video games. And Christian is a former musician, so he did the music. He did a song. He wrote it and he recorded it. And then they launched. They came to Fortiche, and we decided that the Get Jinx video would be a music video, really directed as a music video. And that's really the specific, I would say, of that was the start of this really mix of Riot, but Christian is coming from music, and Fortiche with a really filmmaker's vision, and Get Jinx has been the big hit for Riot. And the year after, with Christian again at Riot, we did the Warriors video, which is also a huge hit. And since then, we did other videos, including Rise and KDA, and we are totaling more than 1 billion views on the LOL YouTube channels just with the Fortiche videos.
And so all of that led to, building a strong bond of partnership with Riot Studio. And what was the inception point of Arcane, the series?
Arcane is coming from Christian again, because Christian was and he used to work as player support. He was really like an employee of Riot and really in love with the game. He wanted to work at Riot Games because he loved the game. And I think that he was dreaming about that since a long time, to tell the backstory of the champions of the game. And the relationship with Fortiche really triggered yes, I think I can do something great because Fortiche. So it's really like he wanted to work with Fortiche. And Riot did, I would say, bet on Christian, who has never been a showrunner, and they bet on Fortiche, which was a small studio at the time.
And so this has all happened around 6 years ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, the first test, we did some tests in 2015, like a sequence, to just show what it could be. And then there have been a pilot produced and really the pilot was finished at the end of 2017, and then the actual production started in 2018.
How was this production different? I know that there's actually probably a number of ways that the production was different, but in the broad sense.
Yeah, I would say that it's unique. More than different, it's unique because it's really how can I say that? It's really coming from Riot Games. So Riot Games wanted to do their own TV series, but they didn't go to a production company saying, we got this IP, we want you to produce a TV series. They really wanted to have this TV series coming from them and with Fortiche. And so everything was unique also because you had a video games company producing a TV series, so there was a learning curve on their side. Fortiche producing such a massive TV series, of course, it's not only one learning curve, it was like general learning for everybody. And we went from 50 employees to 300 today. We had opened other studios in south of France and in the Canary Islands. And so the learning curves was everywhere. Like having people from video games working with people coming from movies, and also inside Fortiche we had some people coming from feature, and some people coming from TV series, and some people coming just from little animation studio doing music videos. So it was really a blend of culture. And I think the learning curve was also about learning to work with each other and taking some different part of each other. So in the end, I think we were really off charts of what you do usually with any TV series.
A lot of people have the sensation and have the maybe frustrating memory of sitting next to your friend or cousin on the couch and watching them play the video game, and you're just sort of sitting there with your hands, don't know what to do, and you're like, oh my God, I could do better than that. And how do you beat that? How do you overcome that feeling that when people create attachments to a game, into a character, into a world, they're creating attachments in a more direct way, whereas when people are watching a series or a film, there's obviously a more indirect and passive aspect to that. And I think that's been one of the hurdles that a lot of adaptations, video game adaptations, have had trouble overcoming. And without speaking for myself, but just as a journalist, I will say other people have said that the Arcane series has sort of overcome that.
Yeah, again, I think it's because it's coming from Riot Games and from Christian. We are not, how do you say, we are not taking the roots of the project is done where it belongs, and the story is emanated from the people who are working on the game, who knows the game by heart, Christian and his co-writer Alex. So for the players, that was really expected, because sorry, I put that. The video game is quite elusive about the characters. You got some backstories online on the website of League of Legends, but lots of fans, they wanted to know more about the characters. They were already doing some fan arts and things about what is the connection between these and these characters and everything. So the player were expecting that, and so that was really the focus, I would say, of Riot Games, wanted to do something for their players, and the focus of Fortiche was just to do a great show. So it's both of them, with people knowing the material by heart, I would say the story material by heart at Riot, and then at Fortiche making great movies. I think it's the player. It's completing. I would say it's not competing with the game. It's something else for the players that Riot wanted to offer to them, I would say. They wanted the players to know the backstories of their characters. And luckily, the series has a massive echo also with the non-gamers and other people.
I saw an interview with Christian Linka not too long ago where he was talking about the character of Victor in the game and in the series, and that they actually got a bit of a negative pushback because fans were complaining that the character was too one-note, and then they wanted the series to treat the character with a little bit more nuance and complexity. And so it's interesting to see that even the showrunner does keep his ear open and try to listen to what other people are saying as well.
Yes, of course. It's really something at the heart of Riot Games. They say that it's player experience first. They are working for the players. The players are in the meeting room. They try, in a way, what will the player think? And so they're really thinking about that and monitoring that through their community. They are in direct link with their communities, and they're really interacting with their communities to make sure that they are producing things that they want, that the community will be happy with. And Riot never released something bad. That's what they say. So that's explaining also the time we took on this series, because everybody wanted to be great. We would have never released it if it wasn't great.
I'd love to bring you back into the conversation, Deborah, specifically with the idea of iterations. And we mentioned that before, but in the video game world, we're working on ideas, or where people in the video game world are working on ideas in increments, in fits and starts in a way, which is quite a different production timeline for television or animation, feature animation. And with the idea of convergence, is it not the case that there's a convergence of a business ethos as much as a convergence of sort of IP across different media?
Yeah, well, in games, we're very used to involving our consumers from the very beginning, like from the concept even. So at every stage of development, we talk to the consumer, we have them play, we ask them questions, and we want still to surprise them, but we look at what they do and we listen to what they say all along the process, including once the game is released, because now everything is online. So even once the game is released, we continue to listen to the community, and we continue to improve the games and add more content and do the necessary adjustments. And now there's a convergence, of course, maybe of philosophy, but also of tools. And the cinema is using tools from the video game more and more. They're using engines, real-time engines from the video games, and that gives them also more flexibility. One example, for example, is the when they want to film at the magic hour, at the very beginning of the day or at the end of the day when the light is so specific and so beautiful. If they want to film at 5 a.m. or at 11 p.m., well, it's hard for the crew, it's hard for the actors. But if they use tools from the video games and landscapes from the video games, they can even have the light very in real time, depending on the day, etc., just by using our tools, and that makes it much easier for the teams. Maybe they don't film all the movie like that, but some scenes they can film that like that.
Well, what can you tell us about the program Lady Sapiens, which I believe uses some of those tools and also furthers this idea of convergence of styles in media?
Yeah, I love this project. It's a documentary co-produced by a French documentary producer, Little Big Story, and France Télévisions, and a Canadian company as well. It's a documentary about the role of women during prehistory. Scientific documentary based on recent discoveries. And usually when they do this documentaries, they go and look for images to illustrate the scientific purpose. They go and look for images in movies, etc. But here, if you look at all the movies that talk about prehistory, you don't have a lot of movies that are going to show women in an active role and positive role that the scientific discoveries are telling us today. So France Télévisions told them, well, okay, so how are you going to illustrate your documentary? And one of the co-scénaristes of the documentary, Jacques Malater, was a counselor on a Ubisoft game called Far Cry Primal, released in 2016, which is a gamer's game for 18+, mature-rated game, but that featured a beautiful reproduction of prehistory and an accurate reproduction, to the point we created languages that were praised by the scientific community, because they were valid languages from prehistory. So the creator of the documentary, the first thing he bought when he started working on the doc was a PlayStation, and he played the game to learn about the game and to identify the location the same way he would have done in a real location. And then he sat next to a technician from Ubisoft. They played the game together, and they used this specific camera that we have inside our game. That is a tool. It's not for the general public. It's one of our tools. It works like a drone that we can pilot in the world and film the 3D world. We can film anything we want inside that 3D world. And in the end, you have a 90-minute documentary illustrated by 17 minutes of Far Cry Primal. And it's the first time that a video game illustrates a scientific documentary. And it was a huge success on France Télévisions, and it's going to be broadcasted worldwide.
Excellent. It seems to me that this idea of convergence goes beyond an IP existing in one way, then simultaneously existing another way, but also a convergence of technical skills. People coming from the video game world and sort of revolutionizing documentary filmmaking. People coming from the video game world and taking the input that they receive, the constant need for input that they receive from their sort of training, looking for input at a near constant level of every step of production. That's really common in interactive, design, and bringing those skills into a more linear form of production, which we see in animation.
Yeah, that's true. That it was something really special for us. Like the first time I did the schedule and the budget for Arcane and presented it to the Riot Games, and they saw this deliveries date like straight and things like that, and they were like, but how do we make it better if you want to correct things? And I was like, yeah, if you want to deliver, we need to find the fine line between delivering on time and being able to iterate to make it better. So yes, it was, of course, we needed to be adaptable and in the process and make sure that we can be reactive to make it always better. And I think the core of it is really about what you say, the technical skills and the people with this, I would say, spirits, the mindset, having different people with different mindsets working together. And I think like Déborah did have the same experience with her team going on the Jean-Jacques Hano set, having video games, I guess, developers in the set of a movie. I imagine that people needed to get accustomed to the others people and knows how to work together.
Yeah, and we have plenty of creative industries in France, but for the moment they're rather separate. You have the movies, you have video games, you have culture and heritage, and you have music, and there's this whole movement now where we call it the French touch, and all these people are getting to know each other.
That's music from the 90s, right?
But they're getting to know each other because it's also by knowing each other and exchanging on a regular basis and knowing about each other's skills and challenges that we can create projects together. So I love this French touch movement for that because it gives me the opportunity to meet all these people. And what was great about the Lady Sapiens project is I only mentioned the documentary, but there's also a virtual reality experience that we developed in co-production with France Télévisions and Little Big Story and the CNC as well. And that is shown at the Museum of Natural History in Paris and in a Paleolithic center in the southwest of France. And there are capsules for kids based on the documentary, so you even have a kids version. And all the different bricks just went one after the other. Someone just proposed it and it made sense and we said yes and go for it. And we trusted each other. So when you want to do, especially when you want to mix industries, it's very important to trust each other and to trust their competences. Because if you want to like control what they do, it doesn't work.
I agree. I agree about the trust. I think that was key also on Arcane. The trust has been settled with the previous project, and I think that's why everybody was so supportive, on the Riot side. Like they were trusting the team to make something great. And if I can just also talk about the skills, like we are doing all the, of course, post-mortem after Arcane and trying to think about how we did it. And one of the questions we are asking is like, what superpowers have we discovered with each other? And so it's not about like a video game, cinema process. It's about the people and what superpowers have we developed as a team and as individuals through this process, and how now we can build from that for the next, for continuing to converge.
Just one last question, and I want you for this question to pretend like this is not being recorded. This is not going online, so no one is going to hold it against you if this doesn't come to pass. But open question, where do you see things going? And if you're wrong, the video will be deleted.
Oh, for me, it's quite clear for the moment because Riot Games, they did open a new unit called Riot Entertainment. And they brought in Shona Spenley, who is now head of Riot Entertainment. And it's really, they are really set, she's coming from Netflix. and they are bringing people from Netflix and from other production company within a video games company. I think it's kind of the opposite. At some point, while Disney did open a branch to do video games, now it's the opposite. Riot Games is opening a branch to do entertainment because they want to give depth to their characters and champions and to their big IP. And but they are doing that within the company, and I think it's one of the perspective.
Deborah?
I think we're seeing ourselves at Ubisoft as an entertainment company and not just a video games company. But at the same time, we know it's really hard. What we know how to do is video games. When it's other things, it's important to have people from the different industries. It doesn't mean that we're going to do everything in-house. We need partners because they have the skills. We need people within the company who understand those skills, but we need them to work with partners also who have more specific skills, who can develop and who can distribute and operate, because we can't do just everything. And sometimes we tend to think that we can do everything ourselves. And for example, we turned Just Dance into a live show. And we did a tour in the US with like 15 dancers and 80 costumes and 2 trucks on the road for a month. And it was fantastic. But we don't know how to sell tickets, and I'm sure our contracts with the places, the location, were not well negotiated because we were newbies. But we learned. We learned the hard way, but we learned. And then next time I want to do something in live, because I did it once, then I know better what type of contract and who I want to work with.
And maybe you know that better than me, but I think the learning curve is something that is really something usual in a video games company, I guess, because there is this process of iterating every day based on what you've learned yesterday and everything. So, and you are not afraid to learn and maybe to fail, I guess.
Yeah. Because it's a cultural industry driven by technology. Technology moves all the time, and it moving all the time means nothing is for sure. There's always a new console coming, and there are always newcomer. Like, you have your market, you have everything, and then 2 guys in the garage can develop a game that takes all the markets. So it's okay for us. That's how it works. So we're not afraid of progress and change. And when you talk about, people who are working on changing company transformation and digital transformation, we've been doing that for years. I mean, that's that's just the DNA of the industry.
Guys, it breaks my heart, but we do have to wrap up. The good news is that the industry changes so much that if we're here again in 6 months, we'll have a whole new set of things to talk about. So thank you so much to Déborah and Hervé, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.